Hey guys, welcome back to Medical Coding with Blue. Today's episode is all about I want to start a medical billing business. Do I need to learn medical coding? If you are brand new to my channel, welcome. I am Blue. I'm a medical coder. Okay guys, disclaimer first. I am not a biller, number one, but I have been a medical coder since 2008. I know a lot about this industry, okay? So while I may have never functioned as a medical biller, I do know a few things about billing. And the advice today that I'm going to give you, of course, you are free to do whatever it is that you want to do. But I think that there are some things that people who are brand new to this, who have no background in this, there's just a few things that you should know, all right? And I'm not trying to sell you guys anything, so whatever you choose to do is whatever you choose to do. But I hope that you'll hear me out for a few of these things, because I think that the things that I will share with you today are the things that a lot of people aren't talking about when it comes to medical billing. Okay, so let's get into it. All right, so I have gotten emails over the last couple of weeks from spouses of providers who want to do their own practice. So the spouse wants to do the billing, and they contact me and they say, well, Blue, what do I need to do? Where do I need to start? I want to be a biller. Where should I go? I got a comment the other day, which kind of inspired today's episode. So the viewer says, hello, I really enjoyed your video. My wife is a clinical psychologist looking to leave her firm and go on her own. I am interested in doing her billing for her and for others in the future. Do you think a certain credential would be a good place to start on this journey? Thank you. And the credential he's talking about is a billing credential. And here's the thing, guys. Do medical billers have to know medical coding? The industry says no, it is not a requirement. When you look at the job listings, it's often asking for somebody with a high school diploma or a GED, because essentially the medical billers are processing paperwork. They are submitting the claims to the insurance company. They're working with the patients and getting the payments that way, like the co-pays and stuff like that. Sometimes the medical biller serves as the medical coder and the medical biller, depending on the setting, okay? Because not every place sees not every place knows and understands what medical coders are. They automatically associate us both together. And it's really not true, because typically it's two different people, but sometimes it can be the same person who does both the billing and the coding, okay? So, and a lot of times in these practices that the spouse is doing the billing and the other spouse is the one who's the doctor, that's usually how these things work, because who better to trust in a position like that in the billing department than your spouse, right? And so that's what a lot of spouses do. You'll see them like in the smaller practices, it's the wife that's doing the billing, or it's the wife that's doing, or the husband. Now sometimes it's a husband too that's running the office, and the wife is the doctor and they're doing their thing. So that's how that works. But the thing is, with this viewer saying that, they wanted to do this for their spouse and then maybe for other people. When you are the sole person who's going to be doing this, right? And you're going to be responsible for submitting these bills. I think that it is important for people who are going at this in that way. They're doing it to support their spouse, like to be a partner with their spouse to do the billing side. I think it's important to go through a medical coding course versus going through just a medical billing course. Now, here's the thing. With medical billing, it's about processing the paperwork. Yes. And I'm sure his wife knows a lot about submitting bills and things like that. Maybe they select their own codes, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that provider knows the appropriate codes, or maybe they might be missing out on credit that if their spouse who's doing the billing was actually a medical coder would be able to spot, right? Because then they would be able to know, oh, hey, you documented this, but you selected this code. It's actually this other code, because this other code fits more of a description of what you're doing here versus this other one. And while they may say, well, you know, my spouse, the doctor has always submitted these codes and they've always paid out and everything's been fine. Just because an insurance pays out codes, right? Codes, the diagnosis code or the procedure codes, just because they pay them out doesn't necessarily mean that it's correct and that they're not going to go through an audit and say, oh, you know, wait a second, we overpaid you. You owe us money. So this is why I'm saying, if you want to be the spouse who's doing the medical billing, go through a medical coding course, because every reputable medical coding course is going to teach you also about reimbursement. We all have to learn about reimbursement as medical coders, because I get those people who come to me and say, Blue, I don't want to do anything with medical billing. I just want to be a coder. Why do I have to learn the billing stuff? Because we all have to learn it. It's on all of the medical coding certification exams. There is a portion of this exam that covers reimbursement, right? So again, if you are going to be in that position, or you want to be in that position, and this person saying that they want to do this not just for their spouse, but for other people, think about how much more impactful you can be knowing about the coding. Because even though they say, well, you know, you don't have to know about that, you're just submitting bills to the insurance company. Think about this. You know, then you're going to be relying on that provider to select their own codes. Again, providers are not medical coders. That's what we are. That's why we have a job. Because we are the coders. And we know about the updates. We know about the rules. Now, granted, there are some providers that are acutely and keenly aware of how to code. I have ran across a couple of those in my career, and I love those. I love the provider champion types that know about medical coding, and some of them are actually certified medical coders. And I love those doctors because they get it. They understand what we go through because they know the rules and they understand why. Because for us as medical coders on the medical coding side, when we try to explain this to providers, you know, sometimes they get defensive and, oh, you're just trying to keep me from getting paid. No, actually, it's the opposite. I'm trying to help you get paid by correctly submitting the correct codes the first time. And I'm here to support you in that. So if your function is to be the medical biller and you're doing that, I would strongly suggest foregoing just the medical billing courses and actually going through a medical coding course so that you don't get caught up in all of these things. Well, I didn't know. I didn't know is not going to fly, because ignorance of medical coding is not an excuse for why you submitted the incorrect codes. There was a story that was out on LinkedIn, and I'm not telling you guys this to scare you, but what I am telling you is so that you can be aware. The doctor was an ophthalmologist, or I think it was ophthalmologist or optometrist, one of the two. I think it was ophthalmologist. And his wife did the billing. So they turn around, come to find that the insurance went and did an audit, and the husband, who was a doctor, he got a fine, but still was able to practice. The wife ended up going to prison for 3 years for fraudulent billing because she submitted the claims. So again, everything that we submit, we are held to, right? Now, there are some things that, okay, yeah, that was a mistake. We'll go back and correct it, and then we'll pay you your money, and, you know, we'll do this, and we'll take this fine or whatever. But if you are submitting bills and they're saying that you're submitting fraudulent bills, or they come back and find out that you've been submitting fraudulent bills, that's your name that's on that submission. So again, that spouse ended up going to prison for 3 years. And that story was all over LinkedIn. So again, this is why I say that even the spouses that are going through this, at least take a coding course. At least take a coding course, because again, the billing is taught in these coding courses. It is the same as you would take if you're taking a billing class, right? A billing class may be a little bit more in-depth, but you're still going to learn this roughly the same thing that you would learn in medical coding school. So that's where you really need to kind of like consider your options. And to me, if I'm a doctor and I have my spouse, and my spouse says, hey honey, I want to do the billing side for you, okay, then you are going to a coding course. You are going to a coding course. That would be what I would do, because 2 minds are better than 1, right? And if you are the spouse and you're solely dependent on your provider spouse, I keep trying to say husband, wife, spouse. That's why I'm saying spouse. So you guys got to bear with me, okay? I know it's equal, but here we go. Okay, so with that, I want you guys to keep this in mind. The provider is not the medical coder, and they cannot be depended on to get the correct codes, because again, that's not their job. Their job is to take care of the patient, document what happened during the encounter, or document the procedure appropriately, so that way we can go in there and look at those things. And having a medical coder that is on your staff that is also doing the billing is going to go a long way, because even if the spouse didn't want to do the billing anymore, at least they know the coding. And at least if they hire a biller, right, that biller can be like, okay, yeah, this is being submitted, oh, hey, this got kicked back. Well, then the coder could be like, oh, okay, yeah, now I understand why. And then they could talk to the spouse about, hey, we need to get this queried, so that way we can get this submitted again for payment. So there's a lot to it. But if you've never been in the health information industry before, I strongly recommend that you go through a medical coding course before you try to leap out there and be a medical biller, not knowing what you're doing, not understanding modifiers, not understanding evaluation and management levels, not really understanding the language of procedures and what does it mean when a provider is trying to submit a claim and perhaps they only have one diagnosis and they did a minor procedure on this day. Well, in some instances you can't bill an evaluation and management with a minor procedure if that's the only thing that they did. But how would you know that if if you're just out there just trying to bill? You may be submitting a bill that we're going to reject this because you can't do that. Well, then the biller's going to be like, well, how am I supposed to know that? If you had taken a medical coding course, you would know that. So try to get as much education as you can about the coding. When you're in the coding course, it will take you through reimbursement, and that's how you can learn a lot more. CMS is also your friend. CMS.gov, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. They have the Medicare Learning Network, where you can learn all about Medicare. You can learn all about their rules and everything. And all of these insurances really model themselves after CMS, after Medicare. So they will follow that leader in that sense. So that is something that if you get really good at Medicare and you really start to learn a lot about it, it's going to be very helpful for you. So that would be my advice. If that's what you want to do, you want to support your spouse that way by doing the billing for them, then you should really consider foregoing a billing course, but really concentrating on getting a medical coding course done and out of the way. If you want to get certified, that's great, because it's going to make you really stay current with all of the things that's going on. Because sometimes even if you go through a course and you say, yeah, I took a medical coding course, and then if you have no certification, you have no really reason to kind of like stay on it. And then that's when you start finding those offices with old books, because they don't really understand the importance of getting new diagnosis and procedure books every single year. And so, you being actively involved and being a medical coder, that's going to really help you. Not to say that you shouldn't take a medical billing course if you want to, but I'm just saying that if you really want to be very valuable to your spouse, I think that starting off with a medical coding certification course, I think is the way to go, because again, billing is going to be covered in there, reimbursement is going to be covered in there. And doing a business is also knowing the business side, and that's a completely different animal. But when it comes to this, you really do need to know about the coding, because again, that spouse is not going to be relied upon to know the correct codes. They're not going to know that, new updates have come out unless they're really into that. And you will find that very rarely. It's not a common thing, because you will hear from these doctors, well, I got this program and it does all the coding for me. These computer assisted software, computer assisted coding programs, they aren't right a lot of the times. It's selecting a lot of those things that it's looking for words. It's playing on that artificial intelligence, but it's really looking for words. And, you know, doctors, they don't always consistently document either. So that means that they can change their mind and how they word things. And again, this system is only as smart as you're telling it to be. So if it's doing that, then it's just like, oh, okay, you know. So it's selecting a lot of the wrong things. And again, you can't blame the software, because if you're the one who's submitting that claim, they're going to come looking for you. So that's the thing I say. If you are educated on the coding side, it's going to make you even more powerful. It's going to make you more knowledgeable. And I would never, ever, ever, ever recommend somebody who does not have any background in medical coding or the health information field or medical billing at all to start this and be like, oh yeah, I can do this. This is something completely different. Medical billing is something completely different. And you have to be very careful, because again, you know, we're looking at, you know, people's livelihood here, the provider's livelihood, and you're looking at the patients who have to pay these bills. And a lot of these patients, if they're sick, or, you know, if they're about to file for bankruptcy because they're getting these out of control bills from people who don't care to educate themselves, to learn more about, am I doing this appropriately? Am I selecting the correct codes? Or is the provider documenting like they're supposed to? You know, am I doing the right thing? And the first step to that, to mitigating all of that, is learning the coding. Learn the coding. Because when I hear from billers who say, well, I'm not a coder, you don't have to be. You don't have to be, but you should know. You should know about modifiers. You should know about diagnoses. You should know about combination codes. You should know about procedures. You should know about all of these things. There's no excuse not to know, right? So, but that's my advice anyway. If you know, if you want to go at it and just try to get all this billing and things like that, you're missing part of the puzzle, which is the coding. And that's really what it's all about, right? Because again, when you submit those claims, that's what the insurance is going to be looking at, is the codes that are selected and the documentation. At least this is my advice anyway. So I'm going to wrap this one up. I wish you guys the best. If you are going to be on that journey, you are wanting to do a medical billing business, if that's really what you want to do, make sure you do your research. Okay, guys, do your research, because submitting claims and not really knowing or understanding what you're doing is not a good thing. Not in this field, okay? Get yourselves educated. That's just my advice anyway. If this video helped you, I hope that you will share it. Hit that like button, because that really helps me to move up in the algorithm, and so that this video reaches more people, all right? So like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.